Now we look at our text, verse 1. He says, I saw in the right hand of him who sat on the throne a book written inside and on the back, sealed up with 7 seals. John says, first of all, I saw. That's why John is called the seer. He saw the things that God revealed to him, that Jesus Christ himself revealed to him. And he wrote it down in this book. Now, the fact that John saw the future is a very important thing. It tells us something very important about God. Really, we can interpret this only one of 2 ways. If John saw the future, it's because God revealed the future to him. If God revealed the future to him, God knows the future. But here's the question: how does God know the future? It is very popular in the evangelical world today to say that God knows the future because He looked down through the corridors of time and He saw what was going to happen. Or that His wisdom is so great He is able to discern all the factors creating the future and then come to a logical and perfect conclusion about the future. He knows the future because He saw it. But that's not what Scripture teaches. John knew the future because God revealed the future to him. And God revealed the future to him because God knows the future. And God knows the future because He is the author and the sovereign Lord of the future. He has determined, designated, predestined, designed, whatever you want to call it, absolutely everything so that it will come to pass according to how He desires, and yet without removing the responsibility of moral creatures. Now, he says here, he saw in the right hand of him who sat on the throne a book. Now, this book consisted of papyrus or parchment glued together and rolled up on a spindle. Books as we know them today didn't come into play until about the 2nd or 3rd century. Now, we have to ask ourselves, and this is very important to understand our text, what does the book represent? Well, I want to read to you from Ladd. He says this: it is God's redemptive plan for the final scene of human history, the overthrow of evil and the gathering of a redeemed people to enjoy the blessings of God's rule. Beale writes, the book is best understood as containing God's plan of judgment and redemption, which has been set in motion by Christ's death and resurrection, but has yet to be completed. I believe this book deals, in a general way, with the revelation of the final consummation of God's plan in human history. The gathering forth of a people, the judgment upon the wicked, the redemption of the church, and the restoration of all of creation. Now, he says here, I saw in the right hand of him. So the book was held in the right hand of God. Literally in the Greek it says that the book was on the right hand of God. Now, from our studies in biblical literature, we understand that the right hand was a place of favor, attention, and a place of power. Thus, the Christ is seated at the right hand of the Father. The seat of favor, the seat of power, the seat of authority. Now, what does that mean about this book? It means this: that God's redemptive plan for the church, His work of gathering a people for Himself, it receives His full attention and is the center point or focus of all His power. Now, do you see what that's actually saying? You see a missionary beating on a drum, talking about a people that he loves. You don't see that because he is involved in the Great Commission, that he receives the full attention of God, that he is the focal point of the power of God. It's quite an amazing thing. Let's go on. Now, I want you to look. It says, I saw in the right hand of him who sat on the throne a book written inside and on the back. The thoroughness of this book. I want you to understand something. With regard to the salvation of the church, the gathering forth of a people for Christ, the Great Commission, not one detail is missing. Not one thing is left to chance. He is sovereign over all things, to the greatest events, to the most minute. He's Lord over it all. I want to read something to you that I wrote to put in my notes. It is this: whether it is one family saved from a deluge in a makeshift boat, granting a baby to an old man and his barren wife, sending a favored son to prison in Egypt, placing a baby in a basket of reeds and setting him afloat on the Nile, dividing a sea, diverting the spear of a wicked king thrown at a young psalmist who would replace him, preserving the Messiah's line from an evil queen when only one male descendant remained on earth, watching over an exiled people and bringing them home again, moving an entire empire to hold a census in order to bring one unknown carpenter to his hometown in Bethlehem, whether it involves sending his son and having him offered up on the cross by the hands of the wicked men, whether it involves resurrecting him from the dead and gathering a people to be his bride, every detail is worked out. And not one thing is left to chance. A missionary life is not one of great apparent success. True missionaries struggle a great deal. They can spend their entire life and not see many conversions in certain lands. This is the stuff of strength. Not what they necessarily see with their own eyes, not with the reports that they can send home about all that God is doing. No, the strength comes from this: that the one who is Lord over history is Lord over the Great Commission, and everything He has ordained will come to pass. Psalms 33:11, the counsel of the Lord stands forever, the plans of His heart from generation to generation. Isaiah 46:9, listen to this. Remember the former things long past, for I am God and there is no other. I am God and there is no one like me. Declaring the end from the beginning and from ancient times, things which have not been done, saying, my purpose will be established and I will accomplish all my good pleasure. Ephesians 1:11, who works all things after the counsel of His will. Now, if we look in verse 1 again, it's a book written inside and on the back, and it's sealed up with 7 seals. Now, in ancient times, in Roman times, the seal was used to show 3 things, or to do 3 things. To show ownership, to protect the document from being changed or altered in any way, and to keep its contents secret. Now, how does this apply to our text before us tonight? Well, first of all, that seal implies God's ownership. Again, that God is the owner of human history. He's the sovereign Lord and author of human history. You need to understand something. Everything that has ever been done has been done for Him. Everything that He is doing is ultimately for His glory and the display thereof. Now, because you're from a humanistic culture, you say, how could God do all these things for Himself? Because He happens to be God. By virtue of that title, it is His right to do all for His own glory. Any rational creature must have an end or a purpose for what they're doing. And if they are a rational creature, they will have the highest end or highest purpose for what they're doing. So if God is going to do something, there must be a reason for it. And the highest reason in the universe is God Himself. He does it for Him. You say, what about me? Well, the kindest thing that God could ever do for you is to give you the greatest gift He could ever give you. And that is for Him to make the world a stage and to walk out in the center of that stage and to reveal His glory so that you might see it. Some of you who think Christianity is so dull, it is either you have been taught wrongly or you still remain unconverted.